Thank you for having me here, and I really do thank the earlier presenters. In fact, I have some reactions to them, which I will cut my rest of my talk, and I will react a bit. One, just to react to Bart de Wever's first comment about not only his book, but his subject, that many people reacted that this was a talk or book about nothing. And on the one hand, I will say, you know, we had a very famous television show, Seinfeld, which was said to be about nothing. And of course, it was very popular in America, so it does not preclude that. Mm-hmm. But more seriously, I think that is a reaction that we see in the U.S. as well, that in a way, one side of the debate thinks it's culture and it's normal behavior, and there really isn't much to it, and the arguments are sort of off there. And one of the things I guess I'm going to talk about a bit is that in America we are starting to see this divide between those who sort of accept and maybe push back a little bit on the edges in the cultural way, and those who are thinking about, are there ways of using politics as ways of pushing back against that? And that's not always accepted by everyone on the right. I think there's a debate on the right as to what the proper response is, but I think it is a feeling on the right generally that institutions and culture have been taken over. In a way, these things are thought to be about nothing. They're not political issues, and whether they should make it into the political system is a real question for us. So let me begin with just my talk was really not going to be quite as philosophical as the two before, and I appreciate those. Mine was just to really talk about American politics and some of the developments and how woke comes into our recent politics, our very recent politics. You know, first, I think Americans would be surprised, and some might be pleasantly surprised. They're not surprised to hear that American exports might be criticized abroad, but they might be happy to hear that some of the criticism of woke is seen as an American export that maybe is not perfect for the rest of the world, and they might find some allies in other parts of the world. Our politics, we haven't really, as an academic matter, we've talked about it for a while, but I think there's been a significant change in our politics in the last 5 or 6 years, that recent, about using the term woke. And it's not as if some of these issues don't go back further, but somewhere, maybe just before COVID, with the development of social media platforms, we really did start to see the issue becoming, you know, much more prevalent. In COVID, I believe we saw a significant movement of parents and others who started to question what was being taught in schools, as they now saw their schools on their children's Zoom stations and wanted to push back. They also, you know, started to look into the curriculum. They started to worry about health and school shutdowns for the health of kids. And there was one incident, I think in particular, that was part of a race that we ran in a governorship in my home state of Virginia in 2021, where the sitting, or the former governor running again, a Democrat, said, and I don't have the quote in front of me, but basically, why is it that that parents should be able to tell the schools what to do? And that really opened something up for the challenger, the Republican challenger, thinking, are we just bound by this professional class, by this expert woke class? They're the experts. They should be teaching, whether it's about sex education and health policy or woke curriculum, or the ways in which we should teach about race and our history. Is that something that parents should really have no say and push back? And his argument, and he's, I think, someone who's thought of as a kind of much softer version of Donald Trump, was that a wide group of people, in Northern Virginia, who many of them were immigrant children, others wanted some say and felt like the schools were going in the wrong direction. So I think that's really the start of something that we started to see. The social media policy also, of course, that's evolved, but the question of whether both parties have some more problems with social media companies than they did 5, 6 years ago, but they see the problems differently. And certainly on the right, you've started to really see this question of what is the filter from social media companies? Are people being censored? Are people being kicked off? Are people being framed in certain ways? And perhaps is government itself trying to influence the social media companies' moderation of debate in the name of protecting the citizenry against disinformation? Has that gone too far? So finally, I guess I would say that, and I don't know if I'll make my 2 minutes, but I will try to keep it short, 5 minutes, but that we're going to see, I think, there are two areas which you are starting to see political movement. First, I think the Republican primary that is going to come up between Donald Trump and some others. We're not sure who's running, but certainly one possibility of a strong opponent for him, maybe the governor of Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis. There, I think you will hear a lot about woke. In fact, Donald Trump, in his own way, had a series of populist issues. I think in some ways when he ran in 2016, did not use that term, and for us, what's included in woke may be slightly different. I think immigration is a populist conservative issue, but we don't usually associate it with woke as much, maybe as you do here. But still, he was somebody who pushed back against establishment, and at least is seen by many as someone who would push in that direction. I think his potential opponent, Ron DeSantis, one of the reasons he might be a strong opponent to Donald Trump, and I don't know if he'll beat him, is that he has staked much of his career and his ability to attract that same type of voter, a more conservative populist voter within the Republican Party, on some issues regarding woke, whether it's pushing back on school policy, pushing back on corporate policy, pushing against the Disney Corporation. Ron DeSantis is sort of seen by the left as being, really politically incorrect in many ways, but I think that's where he has made his stand. And so I think we will see silence on the Democratic side. There won't be a race for Joe Biden. He'll run by himself. But on the Republican side, we'll see a lot of that. The second area, quickly, is that we have in the United States federalism, a strong federalism with states making policies in important areas. And yes, we are a divided country in many ways, but part of that division, it means that we have some states that are controlled by one party and other states that are controlled by the other party. And we see in many states, sometimes following the example of Governor DeSantis or Governor Youngkin in my state, a large range of bills from those regulating the way in which we teach race in schools to regulating sex education, transgender policy in various places, transgenders in sports. These are bills that are being passed in 15 to 20 states out there. And of course, they're being challenged by courts. They're being challenged in very public ways in some of our state legislatures. You might see there have been some controversies about more progressive members protesting against the decisions in these conservative states. But that's where I think we will see this kind of issue go forward. The last question is, will it really be part of our final campaign in 2024 for the presidency, or will there be this kind of silence, or it's about nothing on the Democratic side and being raised by the Republican side? I'm not sure. I mean, I think we have a lot of other social issues, which on the Democratic side, I think the abortion issue is one that they've raised, other crime and immigration, which are populist issues. But I think that the woke set of issues will be one that Republicans do raise. The question, I think, intellectually for many, for maybe the intellectual part of the Republican Party, intellectuals within the Republican Party is it right to use government power to push back against these things? Is it right to go into our public universities, as Governor DeSantis has in Florida, and really look at the policies they have for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and maybe change people, change personnel, change policy? Or is that too heavy-handed? Is that against free speech? Is it too much big government? I think among the people, that debate has probably been won, that Governor DeSantis's take and some other states are moving in that direction. But I do think within the Republican Party there is this intellectual debate as to what the right response is and whether maybe some of that has gone too far. So I will leave it there, other than to say, thank you for having me from America, and thank you for, in some ways, pushing back against our most recent export of woke, which we are struggling with as well.